Online magazine, part 3 with Howard Palmer. We're talking about the golden age of Ilford Jewry. Do appreciate all your opinions and comments, Howard.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you. We've spoken about the 1960s and the 1970s briefly. The 1980s, Howard.
Yeah. This was a time of mass emigration out of Ilford.
Was there?
For Jewish people, and a mass immigration of people, specifically from the Indian subcontinent. But that was a movement that was happening anyway. But there was a big crossover of Jewish people moving out and other people moving into Ilford. It had always been attractive. Ilford and the Redbridge area will always have its popularity with people moving up the social scale from the East End, i.e. from immigration. It's very convenient for the city, it's very convenient with the tube stations and the underground and everything else there. But this was the start of an enormous mass exodus, including myself, out of Redbridge.
Why?
Because it didn't have the facilities, and if you wanted a chinuch for your children...
If you wanted an education.
If you wanted a proper Jewish education, an Orthodox Jewish education for your children, we felt, like many other families, that you were faced with either living there and staying with a bitter remnant, if you like, of Orthodox Judaism, or you had to move out.
But why didn't these Orthodox Jews, the Balta Shiva families, why didn't they create their own community within the Ilford community?
I think it was, number one, there was a question of money to begin with. There was a question of other priorities as well. But more importantly, we already had schools in existence in Finchley, in Hendon, in Golders Green, and therefore, when a school, and in Stamford Hill obviously, if you got a school with a reputation of Yesodi HaTorah, you tend to think to yourself, why start again? How can I start again?
But the thing is,
why not go there?
No, the thing is, Howard, though, you know, in northwest London, whether it's Edgware, Hendon or Golders Green, there are many schools developing and sprouting up because of the need.
Sure.
And obviously there was a need in the 70s or 80s in Ilford. So why didn't that happen?
Because you have people starting up schools in Golders Green who simply are devoted to chinuch.
Education.
Yeah, to education. I'm telling you, what I mean by that is this. I was one of the people who, with the governors, started Beis Shnera. And when you look at the people who started that school up, we did so for a specific reason. And the people who started the school up were absolutely, totally devoted to that day and night. Now, to do that, you have to be a certain type of person. Starting a school is not easy. And to be honest with you, you have to be absolutely and totally devoted to it.
So did in the 1980s, did the synagogues, the United Synagogue and the Federation, did they see, inverted commas, the writing was on the wall?
Oh, absolutely.
And what were they doing about it to stop it?
Look, the Federation moved its premises, it's based in from Greatrick Street into Hendon, into, I mean, they saw that they absolutely saw it.
But could they have stopped the time?
No, it was unmovable. You couldn't have stopped it. There was
but Rabbi Godleski came into town.
He's here now.
But he came in the 1980s, didn't he?
That's absolutely right, to take over the Stiebel.
And so he must have seen some potential there for...
He saw potential there. I remember my father meeting Rabbi Schnellberger, the Rabbi Schnellberg's father, who asked him, because my father spoke Yiddish as a mother tongue. So he just simply asked him if there was a butcher, and my father had to, in Beehive Lane. My father, seeing a Hasidic man in Beehive Lane, was quite surprised. And he just asked him what was going on. And people were considering moving to Ilford for outreach programs. But they ended up in Edgware. And it could have gone either way, to be honest with you, but the movement in Edgware with such dynamic people, for example, as Rabbi Levi Sudak, that kind of movement was unstoppable. And they started here, and they built it here, and they turned Edgware from a very upmarket Jewish area into a very Torah area.
So from the 1980s in Ilford, where there was a movement to leave for some members of the community. What happened in the 1990s?
It'd gone. By the 1990s, it was already complete. By the 1990s, I'm afraid to say that other areas had already set, like Edgware, had already set themselves up as the new Jewish areas to move to. But this polarisation, it wasn't just Ilford, it happened up north in Manchester. It happened in various other areas. There was an immense polarisation of Orthodox people into a number of small areas. And that's exactly what happened here. Edgware became the next area after Golders Green and Hendon. Nothing to do with their development, it was a completely different group of people.
So from a population in the 1960s of, say, approximately 20,000 Jewish people, in the 1990s?
Oh, you're looking at a small fraction of that number.
10,000?
Oh no, you're looking at way under 10,000. Way under, and an ageing population.
So in 20 years, 20, 30 years, the population had been reduced in half.
Yeah, I mean...
That's amazing.
20, 30 years' time, Gans Hill will be like the East End is now.
With maybe a few thousand.
A few hundred Jewish families. It will be bereft of Jewish families.
So, just going back to some golden highlights, I understand in Beehive Lane Synagogue, every Shabbat there might have been 3 bar mitzvah boys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was the norm. I was fortunate enough to at the Federation have my bar mitzvah only on my day.
Right.
I thought when I was a young man and a boy and went to shul with my sister that bar mitzvahs were a normal part of the service. And that's the way I grew up. Kiddush was usually you had to have 2 or 3 boys go up and read from the Torah every week. I thought that was the service. I thought that was part of it.
And were the shuls jam packed on Shabbat?
Absolutely, you're packed with people. Many of them would park round the corner. Absolutely.
Circumstances, though.
Sorry?
Circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely packed with people because their family came from all over the place.
I understand Beehive Lane had a very famous cousin.
Oh, Reverend Skalatsky.
Yes.
Skalatsky was an absolutely amazing man. He was not only a wonderful chazan, he was the most immensely personable, wonderful human being you could meet. He lived very near to me in Clarence Avenue, and non-Jewish women would go up to him and ask him to bless their kids. I used to see this all the time. Non-Jewish women would run after him to ask him to bless their children. This is how popular this man was. He was an enormous character. He was too big for Ilford. too big for
Do you have fond memories of Reverend Odell as well?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Reverend Odell taught me my bar mitzvah and brought me to his home. I'm still quite friendly with his son. And I have very fond memories because when I looked up to the balcony after my bar mitzvah, I can remember the Rebbe's and Odell crying as much as my mother. So people were very, very much closer then. And that's just the way it was. But I used to learn it around his house. I remember the enormous walk up the drive. At my house, absolutely. Yeah, we were very, very close.
Okay, that brings part 3 to a conclusion. We'll be back very soon.
Okay.
Thanks.